Hi everyone, and thanks for coming. I'm Paul, and today I'm going to be doing a talk for you on the little Q, and what that means will become more apparent as we go through my talk. But essentially, it's what would happen if we ignore quality management and the risk of doing so. So, I am PIM's QHSE manager, and I'm sure you've all got QHSE departments in your offices. It might be called the HSEA department, or the QHSSEA department, or the HSE and Q department, and so on and so on. There's so many different acronyms for essentially the same thing. So with so many acronyms for the same department, it got me thinking, what does the Q even mean? Well, we know it's to do with quality management, procedures, audits, processes. Essentially, it's customer service. But I wanted to delve a little bit deeper than that. I wanted to know, why is it QHSE? Why are quality management and health and safety management bedfellows? Why do we have them in the same department, essentially? Now, there's been more and more letters added to QHSE, as we've just seen that. There's things like security have been added. But for the purposes of this talk, we're looking at QHSE. So I did what most people do, and you consult Google and you have a look. And I typed in to see if I could find out why quality management and HSE management are essentially run by the same department. I couldn't really get an answer for that. There's a little bit about the HSG 65 and Plan, Do, Check and Act, but I'm not going to bore you with that today. So I did what the next best thing, and as I asked somebody a lot more intelligent than me why it's QHSE. Unlike most intelligent people, they never come back to you with the answer. They come back to you with a question. And the question he asked was this. So if a pipe support fails and it results in a dropped object and an escape of fluid, what would we class that as? Would it be a safety issue? Would it be an environmental issue? Would it be a quality issue? Or would it be all the above? Well, it's certainly a safety issue. If there's a dropped object, then yeah, absolutely, we could hurt people. It could be an environmental issue. If we're losing fluid where it's not supposed to go, then yeah, absolutely, an environmental issue. And the root cause of the actual incident is probably a quality issue. If we look back far enough, you'll probably find that the maintenance hasn't been managed properly, and that absolutely is a quality issue. So let's look at the Q in terms of quality management and the risks of ignoring it. I've been in the industry for a wee while now, and what I've found is I've been to a lot of events, presentations, forums, and what you find is it looks a lot like this. Health and safety get the big billing, and we talk about them a lot. Environmental, it's starting to get more and more traction as it becomes a bigger subject in the world, but certainly we shouldn't be damaging the environment, and that's getting more and more discussed. But quality never does. It's the little Q. It's almost a silent Q. So I thought, is it that just oil and gas? Is it just the way that we do things and we don't really pay attention? So again, went back to the internet and looked at probably the best internet website in the world. And again, it's a similar story. They talk about zero accidents, they talk about zero carbon footprint and zero water waste. Again, we're talking health and safety, we're talking environment, but we're not talking about quality. This is a company that prides itself on the quality of its product, but again, doesn't declare that anywhere on its website. And it's a familiar pattern. A lot of focus is made on health, safety, and environment, but quality doesn't get ignored, but it gets taken for granted. It's assumed that it's something that comes naturally. So why is that? What impact does thinking that quality takes care of itself have? I have to say, it's not something that's ever done deliberately. It's often that we often think that we don't need to focus on it. We need to focus on the other things. I know what you're thinking. It's another triangle, but bear with me on this one. This is the project management triangle, and some of you may have seen it or may have heard of it. But essentially, there's 3 points to the triangle. Well, of course, there's 3 points to a triangle. But they are done quickly, done cheaply, or done well. You can get 2 of these 3 things. You can never have 3. But what do they mean? Well, something that's done quickly and done well essentially means that it'll cost you a lot of money. Take a Formula One pit crew, for example. If you want it done quick and done well, you need to pay for them, and you'll pay for a team of them, and they'll change your wheels in about 3 seconds, and away you go again. If you want something done cheaply and done well, you can pay for one member of that pit crew, and he'll do a good job. He'll change all 4 wheels, but it won't take him 3 seconds. It'll take him a lot longer. Or if you want something that's done quickly and done cheaply, which tends to be what a lot of people focus on, you get Arnold Clark, who will do it quickly and do it cheaply, but generally don't do it very well. Apologies to anyone that works for Arnold Clark in the room. Now, some people think you can have all 3, but I'm going to say that you can't, and here's why. Take the following scenario. Imagine this is a timeline of a piece of work, and imagine that is the work done well. Now imagine you want that done quickly and done cheaply, but still want it done well. What happens to this orange part here? Well, the orange part shifts to the left because people don't inherently want to do a bad job. So what you tend to find is that the done cheaper part gets taken care of by people putting in extra effort, by working late, by working longer hours, by putting in, working through the lunch breaks and working harder. And that isn't sustainable. So yeah, you can get all 3 for a short burst of time, but long term, it's not sustainable. Here's an example of something that started with the best of intentions, but when time and cost pressures play a part, the quality drops. I drew that myself. So what does it look like if we assume that quality takes care of itself in other industries? Well, take this chap, for example, clearing his minefield. If he did things quick and cheap, I certainly wouldn't want to be following him through that minefield afterwards. I want him to do a good job and do it well. And it's the same for these guys. Now, there are countries you can go to that will give you quick and cheap surgery, but certainly I'd like the surgeons to take their time if I'm going through an operation. And finally, this company here basically wouldn't have a product if it didn't do things well. If you had one bottle of Coke and picked up another bottle of Coke and they tasted completely different, then they wouldn't be in business. Now, some industries can't even get one point of the triangle correct. They can't do quick, cheap, or well. And this is what that tends to look like. But what about oil and gas? What about us? We've worked hard to make oil and gas one of the safest industries, albeit one of the most hazardous industries in the world. But we're in danger of taking the done cheaply and done quickly approach. And we could be putting people's safety at risk by assuming that quality takes care of itself. Now, what does that look like in the integrity management cycle? Let's take a look at this highly unrealistic scenario. So a project you've been working on has been given a deadline of 6 months. 3 weeks into that project, your manager comes to you and says, I need that project done in 3 months instead of 6 months. And of course, there's no additional budget to do that. I know it's highly unrealistic, that scenario, but these things can happen. So what are the risks to that project? Well, suddenly quality becomes the issue. The done well part is at risk. So let's assume this is a risk-based assessment we're doing. And with done quickly and done cheap given priority, the risk is quality. So what we could find is that we have a poor RBA done and threats get missed, that we poorly plan our inspection activity, that we do unnecessary inspections, so we're inspecting things we don't need to inspect, that we are getting back unclear work packs or doing poor inspection reports, that we're asking people to go back into hazardous situations, back into confined spaces to re-inspect things we don't need to be re-inspected. We're getting data missed, so things are not being updated correctly, and that gets fed back into the loop, back into the RBA, the risk-based assessment, and the loop starts again and again. We've all produced a document or a report or a work pack and issued that to somebody to check, and you get that back in 5 seconds and say, yep, everything's fine. Have they really done that check? Have they peer reviewed that properly? We don't always do that. So what's the knock-on effect of that? It may just be checking over a report and you think that doesn't have any knock-on effect. But imagine the data on that report was critical to the next inspection of a hydrocarbon line. What we could then have is less inspections being done or more inspections being done, and the knock-on effect is we're putting people's lives at risk later down the line. We don't often think about that when we're doing our reviews. We're quite a short-sighted industry, and by skipping on quality management, all we're doing is kicking the cost down the road. Unfortunately, we do still tend to think about the now rather than the future, and that's certainly true with quality management. So back to this, play on words here. If a company had a poor health and safety record or environmental record, they'd be out of business. We wouldn't use them. They wouldn't get any business. But why do we tolerate if a company's got a poor quality record? Well, there's a reason for that. It's because we tend not to know that they've got a poor quality record. And it's because of the feedback. The feedback loop with health and safety is very quick. Take a scenario where if you're a general and you're sending your troops up a hill to go and take a key strategic point, if that general's troops start running up that hill and they're getting hurt or getting injured, the general will go back to the drawing board and he'll change his strategy. So the feedback looks very quick. It tends to look like this. But with quality, you often don't find there's an issue until you're years down the line. Take the RBA example that I showed you earlier. If an RBA was done poorly, you sometimes don't find out that it's a bad RBA until you're 10 years down the line and realise what was done 10 years ago is actually what's hurting you now. And the feedback loop is a lot slower. So as the industry continues to strive for zero accidents, zero incidents, and zero fatalities, what's the next step for QHSE? We've all seen these, we've all seen stop cards, and we're all happy to stop the job for health, safety, or environmental issues. But would we stop the job for any quality issues? Do we ever stop and think, should we actually be doing this job? Has it been checked back on the beach, or have we really thought through whether this is something that we need to be doing? Has the next step in safety management been right in front of us all this time? Is it the Q in QHSE? Should we start focusing on why and how we're doing the job rather than just doing it safely? I want to leave you all with a quote that I quite like, and it's from Benjamin Franklin. And it's that the bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten. Thank you all for listening.